Welcome. Are you guys ready for today? Are you ready? If you're not awake, you're going to be soon, okay? So you guys ready? I am unmedicated today, so you're in some trouble. Well, we've been in a series about Gideon out of the book of Judges. And sometimes, like when you go to watch a TV show, they kind of have that quick thing, like if it's like part 2, part 3, they try catching you up to the scene. We're going to do that real quick. You guys ready? So we got to go through Gideon, the first part of Gideon, so we'll be ready for what I'm about to teach. So this is all just preview. I asked Tyler to help me put together like some slides to kind of help me get us all caught up, to kind of help us visualize. Here we go. First of all, the Israelites, they basically make it to the promised land. Everything's going great. They start disobeying God. They start following Baal. Good, nice job, Tyler. That's a good little slide there. So they start following Baal, and they start following him, and they start turning away from God. Well, God's not too thrilled about that. This is intentionally fast. So he basically goes, hey, he allows the Midianites to basically kind of come in, and they were kind of these people, and they would come in like locusts. Very good, that's great, Tyler, good. He'd come in like locusts, and they would basically devour. What they would do, they would wait till the Israelites got everything kind of harvested, all the cattle and everything fattened up, and they would swoop in like a hostile takeover and take them away. And they take it and they steal everything. And this kept happening year after year to the point where the Israelites were hiding, and often they were just kind of hiding out. And they start crying out to God, God, where are you? God, where have you? You've left us here with the locust people, okay? So then, there was Gideon. Gideon was out threshing wheat. I don't know if that's quite time appropriate, but okay. We'll go with a big combine. Definitely not from okay, so we got a thresher here. I guess they're threshing wheat. And so Gideon is threshing wheat, and he's kind of doing it in a silly place, and he's doing it in a wine press. You can see the tractor's not going to fit, will it? So it's going to be really hard to get that kind of. So he's threshing wheat in kind of a silly place. He's doing it in a wine press. It's not the most effective way. He's mostly just hiding out. But then the angel of the Lord comes to the city of Oprah, to meet Gideon. Okay, so Tyler, it's not Oprah. However, I would love to see the Lord of the angel of the Spirit come and meet with Oprah. Wouldn't it be kind of a fun movie? I would watch that episode, wouldn't you? That would be a great episode. By the end of the show, you get saved, you get saved, you get saved. There, everybody begins saved at the end of that show. It would be awesome. So you got Oprah. It's in the city of Oprah. The angel of the Lord meets Gideon under a tree. And he basically tells him, you're going to be a mighty warrior. Now, we're not slamming Gideon here, but the idea is that Gideon then starts whining like a little baby sometimes. And I'm giving you the blunt version. And he basically starts going, well, you know, God, where have you been all this time? You left us here. We're getting eaten up by these locust people. And they're just kind of doing all this crazy stuff to us. Where have you been? And then he starts whining. God goes, well, you know, I'm going to make you a mighty warrior. And he's like, well, you don't understand. My tribe, my people, we're the least tribe. And out of our tribe, I'm the least of the tribe. I'm the runt. And so God says, you're going to be a mighty warrior, though. Doesn't quite match up with what Gideon sees in himself. He starts to realize that this angel is not really just an angel. It's God himself. It's God kind of making himself known to him. And he goes, oh my gosh, I got to lay down a sacrifice for you. So he goes and gets a big meal, puts together a big meal, and he puts the big meal in front of God, and he offers this as a sacrifice, and the angel burns it up. Very good. So, he then is sent, the angel, God, sends him to tear down the altar of Baal. And to tear it down, now this is where it starts getting a little bit more real, because he tears this is a life and death thing, because his father's people were following Baal. But God says, I want you to tear down the altar. And once again, Gideon, can I do it at night maybe when nobody sees me? God's like, okay. So he sneaks off, he tears down the altar. Next morning, everybody wakes up. They're all ticked off because he just tore down their altar that they've been worshiping. And they run to Gideon's dad and they go, where's the one who did this? We heard that your son did this. And his dad backs him up and says, hey, let Baal rebuild his own altar. Let him protect his own altar. And so he gets saved by his dad, gets saved by daddy. Now, that's our review. That brings us up to where we're starting today. Is everybody caught up now? Everybody know the story? Got enough refreshing? Because now we're going to try having to kick in to where things get a little bit more crazy. and things start picking up. And to help us do this, I thought we'd have to find a model that would help us do this. How many people like Fixer Upper on HGTV? Good, good. That's going to help out today. Okay. What we're going to do, we're going to look at Gideon because Gideon was a fixer-upper. If you think about it, look, he's a fixer-upper. And so the very first thing that they do, that God does, is he goes, it's the search for a fixer-upper with good bones. And God looks at Gideon and goes, I know you don't see it on the outside because we know that over the last few years, you've been torn down. Your nation's been torn down. You've been torn down. You're now hiding, threshing wheat in a wine press, hidden off. Usually it's done out in the open, now he's hidden off. And so the very first thing that they do on all the fixer-upper shows is they search for a fixer-upper with good bones. And God sees Gideon as being that perfect fixer-upper. He sees Gideon as being the guy who, although all this other stuff has been going on around him, although he's not the most immediately brave, he's not immediately courageous, the thing that Gideon has is this. He's kind of timid. He's kind of broken. He's flawed. Now, you go, why would God use him? Couldn't he found somebody else better than Gideon? I mean, come on. Pick from the top tribe. That's what we do, right? We pick the best of it. That's who we want to be. God likes fixer-uppers. And everyone in this room should be grateful that God likes fixer-uppers. Because all of us were or are fixer-uppers. We're at just different stages. The other thing, I do real estate for a living, is one of my jobs. And basically, one of the things I have people call for me, they go, well, we want a good house to do a bit, invest in. And usually what that means is they want to find a piece of junk house with a good foundation, maybe a few studs still up, but they don't care. They'll tell me, we don't care if it has mold. We don't care if it has the roof's fallen in. We don't care. Because you know what they're going to do? They know this. The cheaper they get the house, the greater the payoff for them in the end. And God does the same thing. Let's listen to this passage. This is out of the book of 1 Corinthians. It says this, but God chose the foolish things of this world to shame the wise. God chose the weak things of the world to shame the strong. He chose the lowly things of the world and the despised things and the things that are not, to nullify the things that are. So listen to this part. So that no one may boast before him. He likes fixer-uppers. It's his specialty. Because he wants at the end result, and that's what we're going to kind of get to today. We're going to go through this whole fixer-up process. Because when we get to the end, what God wants to know is this, is one, no one is going to say that somebody else pulled this off on their own. He wants at the end of the show, he goes, well, no one else is going to say that someone else did this for him. He wants at the end of the show, every person to know, this is what I did. No one else is going to boast about my work. And so he chooses the fixer-uppers in this world. He chooses us. Now, have you ever tried training a know-it-all? You guys, anybody? You ever seen it? Anybody got a know-it-all at your workplace or your classroom or whatever? And they know everything. Have you ever tried teaching them something? It's a big fail, isn't it? It's like teaching a wall. I'm like, hey, wall, there's nothing to it. You get nowhere with them. That's the other reason why God likes fixer-uppers. Sick people know they're sick. They go to the hospital. When we know that we're sick, when we know that something inside is not right, we seek God. We're timid enough. Those of us who understand that we're fixer-uppers, who understand that we have needs, who understand that we can't do it ourselves, we approach God with completely different than a know-it-all. Now, I'm not saying it's wrong to be self-reliant. I'm not saying it's wrong to be have pride in what you do. But there's that fine line between you thinking you pulled it off and you understanding God's going to pull it off. And so what we try looking for and what God looks for are people who have been broken a little bit, who know that they can't do it themselves, who are a little bit more timid, who aren't big show-offs. And he looks for people who really, truly understand they need him. He found Gideon. Now, Gideon goes through quite a few different little stages here. And so what we're looking at today is the building of a mighty warrior. That is our fixer-upper project. He starts fixer-upper hiding, but we want to talk about where he ends up. So the next thing, what do they normally do with fixer-upper shows? After you go through they find the house, and what is it? Not yet. They usually, what do they prefer next? The design. Thank you. You do the design stage. You know, that's where they break down, and they show you, this piece of junk is going to look like this. And you're like, oh, there's no way. How are they going to pull that off? You might as well tear down the whole house and start over. Jen and I and my mom and kids, we went down. I have a house that's for sale in Fountain Square. And this house has been torn down from inside and outside down to the studs. A lot of the studs were even removed. It's almost a new house sitting on an old foundation. The house next door is junk. House on the other side, junk. 4 houses down, big money houses. They were leveled and rebuilt. That's how fixer-uppers work. They start, though, with something that they think they can build. They design out, they show you, here's what it's going to look like. And you got to sit there, and this is what Gideon's doing. Gideon's going, God, I see your design. That is not me. There is no way I'm going to look like that when you're said and done. And God goes, this is a design phase. We're just starting. We're just beginning. Wait till you see what's next. Now what's next? The demolition phase. And this is the one we all like. And it's the fun stage. And at the fun stage, the demolition. The demolition of strongholds within us. Because here's what we're going to find out in this. Now, if you don't, I want you to keep track of this in your mind, because this is what? This is the development of you becoming a mighty warrior also. So as we track through this, remember the first thing we said. First thing is, you're the fixer-upper. We found you. The second thing is the design. God wants to share with you his calling and the design. And some of you already know what it is. You've been told, God says, I want you to do this. And it's been very clear to you. And you're like, yes, I know exactly what I'm going to do. Some of us have not had that great fortune. And we get lost. We get nervous. And so this becomes, because this is the phase that scares us. The demolition. Because in the demolition phase, here's what they do. They take the design and they compare it to the current. And what you see is a lot of things have to go. Now, in a house, usually it's, we're going to rip out this bathroom. We're going to rip out this shower. But sometimes in our lives, it's, we got to rip out this relationship that's not healthy for us. We got to rip out this habit in our lives that's not healthy for us. We got to rip out this direction of that your life is going. We got to change directions. We just got to rip it out. This stronghold that Satan has got on you, this addiction, this confusion that Satan has put into your mind, it's got to be ripped out. Because it'd make no sense to build one, have to leave the old shower and put a new shower next to it, would it? That'd be dumb. Put in, right, have 2 toilets sitting there next to each other. That'd be weird and creepy. Nobody wants that, So things have to be removed before the new can be put in. But this is normally where most of us, especially those self-reliant people, say, I'm not going to be demoed. I am not willing to be demoed. But in the development and the training of a mighty warrior, demolition has to take place. What in your life needs to be demoed? Now, I'm hitting this up front because let's be honest, this is the process. We're going to talk through the process. And by the end of today, I'm hoping you have a little bit of a next step at least today. In your world, in your life, what needs to be demoed? Is it the job you have now that is really going nowhere, that makes you hang out with people that are just bad news? I used to watch youth ministry kids get jobs at certain locations, and I could tell them that within 6 months, that kid's going to be smoking dope. Could tell. I knew families and marriages that I could see that one person started traveling more and more and more, and I could look ahead and go, there's going to be a problem in that marriage. You could see kids who were basically getting so caught up in the money world that you knew there's going to be an addiction, and they're going to find themselves in debt, and they're going to be buried in credit card debt. I talked to other kids who dealt with pornography. It was just one click away. To think that you're going to now bring in God's plan and put it alongside of all those things and to build around all these things in your world that are not what God wants is foolish. It's got to be demoed. And the demo phase is hard. A lot of us spend a lot of time in the demo phase. It's part of the process, though. The design, remember, what God keeps his mind on, what God sees is the design. He knew the ingredients. He knew what was there. He knows what it's going to take to piece together this beautiful design that he has in store for you. There's going to be some demo. What's next? What's next in Fixer Upper? What is it? Obstacles, good. I put the word dilemmas. I'm sorry. There's always, here, let me share a few passages for you. Let's go back to demolition. I'm going to show you this passage real quick because this is important. Let's go to 2 Corinthians. I'm going to show you this passage. The weapons we fight with are not the weapons of the world. On the contrary, they have divine power to demolish strongholds. I'm glad I didn't miss this. We demolish arguments and every pretension that sets itself up against the knowledge of God. And we take captive every thought to make it obedient to Christ. Think about that. The cool thing is when we watch fixer-uppers, the cool thing, what makes them so much more effective at being builders, and I found this when I tried working on a car, tried doing anything, is having the right tools. You know, when we think about tearing out and demoing something, we think, oh, I got to go in there and I got to use a pry bar. They come in there with one of those Sawzalls right down the middle. If we think we got to tear out a wall, we think, oh, I'm going to take a sledgehammer. They come in with a backhoe. Boom, knock it over. Having the right tools to do the demo is so important. And if you try doing it completely on your own without Christ being involved, without God being a part of what's going on, because he knows the design, if you try doing it without him, you're just like taking a hammer to the wall of China. You're just going to pound it. You go ahead. You go keep pounding, but you get the wrong tool. So when we talk about the stronghold, we have to rely that God has the tools to tear it out. And that's painful. Now on to the dilemma. Every show has this. Things are going really well, everything looks really good, and always something goes wrong. What is it normally? Somebody tell me some of the things that go wrong in the fixer-upper builds. Wiring's all messed up. They go to tear out a wall, and there's a bunch of, the main wires are going right down the wall. What's another one? Plumbing is bad. Yes. What's termites? I've seen shows they go in and they do termites, and basically they find all this stuff going on. Asbestos, that'd be a really bad one. EPA's coming out to bug you and everything else. The dilemma of pending problems is the next thing that kind of gets us, that Gideon's facing. And what we see inside is this. We're nervous to get going into demolition because we're also afraid of what else might be found. When I start demoing this part of my life, it normally is not isolated in a house, is it? It's connected to the same plumbing, the same wiring, the same structure, the same foundation. And so if I demo this, there's probably going to be more found beneath the surface. And God goes, good. Let's get to the real stuff. Because sometimes those things that we kind of see that we have to demo initially, they're really just bad habits. They're things that, but really what's going on is something that's going deeper. I've had houses that I'll show, and you'll just see a little spot like this on this side of the wall. You rip and open the wall, mold everywhere. Or you walk in a house and you smell something. Something doesn't smell right here. And they rip out a wall, mold. In my own personal house, I had a house that I basically had one back wall, and there was this one little spot in the paint that was just like kind of like crumbling. And I took my finger and I went down like this, and I went all the way to the floor. And I'm like, what is that? Then I saw little things crawling in those little holes. I couldn't sleep. By the next morning, I had ripped out the entire back interior wall of our house and all of our kitchen cabinets. True story. Ask my wife. She wakes up and goes, what? What the beep beep? No, she didn't cause it, promise. But I know she was thinking it, though. I know. Because I was thinking, I couldn't sleep because I thought, there's something behind these walls that I got to find out how bad it is. And God says, I don't want you to be so afraid of the demo phase. He goes, I know you're so afraid of the demo phase because you're afraid of how bad it might be behind the walls. It usually means more money, doesn't it? Well, God's not worried about money, but it might mean more time. It might mean tearing out other walls that need to be found out, because if this one's attached here, probably problems over here too. And in our lives, they're all interconnected. To think we're going to just build a new one next to the old one is not going to work. To start going through this and understand there's not going to be some problems along the way, there's going to be some bumps along the way, is just wrong. It's to be expected. They do it in every show. Now, they do it to build drama, but in our lives, it's reality. That's true reality TV. Here we go. Now we're up to our passage that we're going to talk about today. Here we go. Now the Midianites and the Michalites and the people of the east came together, and they crossed the Jordan and encamped in the valley of Jezreel. Now, why is that important? It's time for them to come back in for this year, for this season, to come back in and steal everything. But this time, he is ready. God has said, I'm going to call Gideon to be the one to take him on this time. It's time to stop this. Time to turn the tables. It's time to do some demo. Here's the dilemma. We're going to hit it face on. See, Gideon had been robbed of his dignity by these people, but it was a time of change, and change was about to happen. We were now beyond that. So now we're looking at this. So listen to this next part. It goes this. And he sounded the trumpet, sorry, I forgot this verse. Here we go. One of the most important verses I want to talk about. But the Spirit of the Lord clothed Gideon. The problems were coming. The problem he was facing was real, but the Spirit of the Lord clothed Gideon. Now, it's just one, I think why I put it so separate was it's just one little verse. It doesn't seem like that big of a deal, but this is everything. This is everything. The dilemma and the demolition would be too much to overcome unless this takes place. If you try doing it on your own, you short circuit what God has planned, because God says, I'm going to clothe you. Things are going to change at this point in time. Now you're relying on me and not you. Now you're not hiding. It's time we go to battle, but I'm with you. He said that earlier. When he goes to prepare the offering, he goes, I'll wait for you. God is so patient in this whole midst. He's just saying, I am here with you now. I want to be with you, and we're going to take them on this time. This is a battle cry time. This is a moment of saying, I am ready. And so here's what Gideon does. He goes, and he sounded the trumpet, and the Abiezrites were called out to follow him. Now, think about this. When we first started our story today, he's hiding in a wine press threshing wheat. Now, he calls out and people are responding. Something changed, and that change is the demolition that had taken place. He tore down the altar of Baal. He sacrificed to God. He was getting right with God. He was doing all these things, and now the Holy Spirit, the Spirit of God, is clothing him, and he knows that he's with him. He's feeling protected. He's feeling empowered, and he's now ready to take it on, and people notice. They want to follow him now. He went from pipsqueak, runt, mighty warrior baby, to now people following him. They choose to follow. And he sounded the trumpet. And the Abiezrites were called out to follow him. And he sent messengers throughout all of Manesh. I can never pronounce these words. And they too were called out to follow him. Notice there again, they follow him. We're changing gears here. And he sent messengers to Asher and Zebulun and one I'm not even going to try. And they went up to meet them. They're following him. It's a change. A change has taken place. In the Fixer Upper show, there comes this point in time when they start realizing this might really happen. They'll walk in, they'll go, ooh, things are really taking shape. The Fixer Upper, things are starting to change in them. What's the next phase? The build. They demoed. They worked through the dilemma. The build is going on. The build of confidence and teamwork. Gideon is now, because of their people are starting to see progress, they have more confidence in him. They're coming together. They're taking on this enemy together. So maybe in our personal lives, this is what happens. When we finally deal with the demo, when we're finally honest and true with people, when people truly see that we're trying to change, they'll come alongside you every time. There's people in this church, that's why some of you have seen your small group. You've shared something that you were afraid of how they're going to respond, and they came closer. You think this is going to destroy my marriage if I share this, and in the end, you became closer. You thought this is going to blow everything up if I quit, that my life's going to go to the pit. And it didn't happen. People surrounded you and lifted you up. The build. But there's an issue that's going on right now. On one side here in this valley is the enemy waiting to attack. Here is Gideon becoming very bravado now, understanding that, wow, this is going to happen. This is becoming very real. This is something that God's with me. God's here. He's ready to go. And I'm ready. I'm calling people out. But then things kind of change. Several years ago, I'm also a sheriff deputy, and my life sounds so stupid and weird. I know that. One of my very first scary calls was this. Some people had stolen some rifles out of Franklin. And they'd stolen them, but we knew where they went. We knew their house over on Whiteland Road. And so Franklin Police Department was kind of pursuing them. We were pursuing them. We knew where they were. And so this night, here I am. I'm probably maybe a year out of the academy, a year being out on my own. And they said, we're going to hit all 3 buildings at the same time. It was showtime. And I remember my heart's just racing. And we get our big long rifles out and stuff, our AR-15s out, and we're kind of going up there. And they said, we're going to hit all 3 buildings at the exact same time. So we roll dark down this long driveway. We all jump out quietly. And on the radio we hear, go. Boom. Loud. Get out. Get down on the floor. People are kicking doors in. It's just chaos. It's crazy. We kick a door into this big warehouse. 3 guys in there smoking dope and some other stuff. And inside this building is a bunch of stolen four-wheeler things. There's all kinds. There's drugs in there, everything. Kick this one in. And I'm thinking, this is so awesome. I feel like I'm on Cops. This is great. It's like an episode of Cops. This is awesome. And then I hear behind me, because my friends were hitting the building behind us. I hear, gun, gun, gun. I'm like, whoa. And then I hear over the radio, Webb, get back here. I'm like, hold on. I want to be on the TV show, not on the... And I remember this moment. And so I turn, and you're trained in this way. I'm running towards this thing. And between the 2 buildings was this one of those big old kind of dilapidated barns. And there was nothing in, and there was like water. It had been raining, so there's water pooled in the middle. And they had like a 2x8 or 2x10 or whatever running across it. So I'm running across that with my rifle like this. And out coming to the building they just came in is this Rottweiler. And he's coming right at me. And there's this moment, me and this Rottweiler, we come eye to eye, and we had a kind of a moment. Because it's like, I don't know if I want to shoot you. And he's like, I don't know if I want to be shot. And I don't want to get bit. And I don't think he really wanted to bite me. And so we both are doing like, and he goes, he runs off. And I'm like, phew, thank goodness. So I run into this room. I'm going in. And down one officer's got one guy with a rifle to his head. He's trying to get him, can't control him, right? He's got a rifle to his head. The canine dog that was with us is munching on a guy that's trying to flush drugs down the toilet with another deputy there. And then I turn around, and straight up in front of me is a glass door with kind of like the grid, this glass grid. And there's a guy standing in there, and I can see behind him are all the guns they had just stolen. And I'm just sitting there just like, and I'm just screaming. And I'm like, this is real. Gideon is in that kind of a moment. It's got real. Battle is imminent. The choice to whether I'm going to go to battle and possibly die is right there upon him. And Gideon has to decide what to do. And we'd love to say Gideon is the bravest man in the world, but here's what happens to Gideon. Then Gideon said to God, if you will save Israel by my hand, as you have said, behold, I am laying a fleece of wool on the threshing floor. If there is a dew on the fleece alone, and it is dry on the ground, then I shall know you are with me. He's basically throwing out hey, God, I want to make sure you're really with me. I want to make sure we're on the same team. And God, look what God does. God goes, so here, beyond I'm the fleece. So he goes, oh my gosh, look at this. I threw, a fleece? I don't think that's the kind of fleece they were using, Tyler. How about, okay, the picture of the fleece I sent him, please. Thank you. He puts the fleece out, and is it wet? He wakes up the next morning, and the pastor says this. The pastor says, and it was. So when he rose early the next morning and squeezed the fleece, he wrung out enough dew from the fleece to fill the bowl. Huh. Okay. So he wrings it out, and so, but then he goes, well, I don't know if that was really good enough proof that God's with me. Let's try this again, God. So what he does the next time, he puts the same fleece out. He puts the fleece out. He goes, I want things to be opposite this time. So we go on. But when you ask, oh gosh, I just lost myself my notes. Here we go. Did I not copy? Okay. Then Gideon said to God, just put it on the screen. And it was so. When he rose early next morning, it was so. Okay, next verse, next passage. You guys love me, right? That's all you have? Okay, we're in trouble then. That is fine. We missed some passages going in there then. That's fine. I can roll with it. Are you guys ready to roll? Oh, you found it. Okay, good. Here we go. Then Gideon said to God, woo, Let not your anger burn against me. Let me not speak just once more. Please let me test just one more with the fleece. Please let it be dry on the fleece only, and all the ground be wet. And the next morning, and God did that so that night, and it was dry on the fleece only, and on the ground, all the ground there was dew. God took the time in this moment when wars are about to happen and battles about to happen to worry enough about Gideon's fleece to make it wet or dry. He cared about him. Now, we also think, is Gideon really just kind of just scared? What is Gideon trying to prove by throwing out the fleeces? Aren't these tests that we're told not to do? You know, we're always told, don't put your Lord God to the test. And we wrestled with this a little bit as we were discussing trying to do this message. And Jim kind of shared kind of some insights, just this, and I'm not sure where he found it because we know it's not from him. No. So, here was the insight. I'm just sorry, I make fun of Jim. So, is that all it takes? I would have done that a long time ago. Jeez. So, Gideon is kind of at this moment, is he testing God? And what we kind of came up with is this, it's not, his intent wasn't for God to do a magic show for him. What Gideon is really looking for is really trying to, the answer to one question is what I came up with. Are you there? Are you with me? Gideon does it twice. He's not looking for, hey, do a magic show and show off everybody that you're with me, God, that you're with me, God. He goes, this is personal. This is inside. This is that internal demo that's been going on in his life. He goes, are you with me? I'm about to face something that I might die in. Are you with me? I'm about to face something that I cannot do on my own, God. Are you really with me? And as much as we like to say he's testing God and he's trying to do all this, it's really him just pleading out in this moment going, are you with me? The problem we run into here is most of us, when we get to this phase in our own personal mighty warrior development, is we stop asking the question. So we have to give Gideon credit. He keeps asking, God, are you with me? God, are you with me? There's some people in this room that just stopped asking God altogether. You attend church because your spouse wants you to come. You attend church because it looks good to your friends. You gave up on the fleece thing. You gave up trying to see if there was really a God. You gave up on seeing if God was with you. Some of us, that's where we're at. And it's okay, it's reality. As long as you're willing now to become a fixer-upper for God, to be his next project. Some of us, we keep throwing out fleeces, and basically what this is really showing about Gideon, he's very immature in his faith still. But just like a lot of us, we keep, God, I know you got me through that really tough time a couple years ago. I know you got me through the death of my dad. I know you got me through this part of my marriage. I know you got me through all this. But let me throw out one more fleece and see if you're really there. It's immaturity. And it's time for some of us to step beyond that. It's time for some of us to say, God, you're with me. God, you're there. And to step out. Look at this passage, if we have it on the screens. Do you have another passage? Nope, you don't? Okay, then we're not. Oh, there it is. And God just said, you got another one? James? No? Okay. You guys want to read James? Oh, you got it? Okay, good. But when you ask, you must believe and not doubt, because the one who doubts is like the wave of the sea, blown and tossed by the wind. That person should not expect to receive anything from the Lord. Let's just stop there for a second. Just think about that. Isn't it hard to ask God for things when you don't believe they're really going to come true? A few weeks ago, somebody asked a question, how do we get past that moment when we don't feel God anymore? You probably stopped asking God for anything that requires his input in your life. You stop putting it out there for him. And so if you want to experience God, you got to do something that requires God. You got to be bold. You got to step out there. It goes on. Is that person should not expect to receive anything from the Lord? Next one. Such a person is double-minded and unstable in all they do. Some of us have been living in this state for a long time. We're double-minded. That job decision, that relationship decision, the decision whether you want to really tell somebody about what's really going on in your life. you hold back. When you hold back, it's hard to know that it's hard to see what God's going to do with it. It's hard to see what God might have in store for you, the design he has in store for you. So Gideon is still keeps crying out, are you with me? And I want to let you know today that as we learned from the story already, God is with him. God is with him from the beginning to the end. This is part of the process, and it's normal. This is part of the normal development of a mighty warrior. And God sees you as a fixer-upper that has a design for you to be a mighty warrior for him. As we kind of finish up, I just want to ask a couple questions for you. What would someone like you do tomorrow if you knew God was with you? What would you do tomorrow when you wake up? What would you do tomorrow if you knew God was with you? How would it change? If you knew you're walking into your workplace tomorrow and you truly understood that God was with you. If you go back into that next argument with your spouse, the next dealing with your ex-spouse, the dealing with your teenager, and you walked in and said, God's with me. I no longer have to throw a fleece out. God's with me. How would it change things? How would it change how you love people? See, God's going to know that they're a fixer-upper also. God's going to know that they're not perfect. And he's going to say, hey, let me tell you what they've already been through that got them to where you see them today. You're meeting them here year 35. I knew them at age 3, at 13, and 20. Wouldn't that just change things? If we stopped and paused in our relationships and we looked at how God sees them? How would your responses be different tomorrow in the decisions you have to make if you knew God is with you? This is showtime. This is the real deal. This is getting ready to go to battle tomorrow. When you leave this room, you're going to battle. Some of you, it's going to be stage 1. You're going to be just a fixer-upper. Some of you are going to be in demo stage. Some of you are going to be in the build. Some of you are going to be in the dilemma. It's okay, as long as you keep understanding the fact God is with you. Earlier in the passage, the angel said, goes, I am with you. I'll wait for you. He is so patient, because what we really want to get to in the very end is the reveal. And the reveal is this: God's presence, God's patience, God's purpose, and God's power. That you no longer have to be fixer-upper. God has in store for you his grand design. Every one of it's a little bit different. But in the end, you are perfect, not because of what you did, because of what he did. God is with us. As we close in prayer today, I just want to make sure we understand this. I don't care if you remember anything else to say. When you wake up tomorrow, how is today going to be different because I know God is with me? Let me pray.